Everyone, John Miller of propanebuzz.com here. To my side is Michael Clark. He is the proprietor of bamwx.com. Some of you have been reading Michael's work for a long time, either via Twitter, you found him on the web, or via the Propane Buzz. And certainly this week, as we've relaunched the Propane Buzz, you've gotten a chance to see a lot of Michael's work, and you're going to get a chance to see a lot more of that in the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years ahead. Michael, thanks for hopping on with me for a brief bit here.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to be able to chat weather with you guys.
Yeah, that's fun. Real quick here, I just wanted to say thanks. You know, I approached you about a year or so ago about maybe one day if I had an idea to do something on my own, maybe there were some things we could do together. You were receptive to that. We're both grinding entrepreneurs would be the right way to put it. So tell people a little bit about your background, the background of your company, who you have working for you, and what you guys do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, John. It's definitely the way our company is structured and kind of the way we built things is on the belief of kind of leaving no stone unturned and approaching things from maybe an outside the box perspective. Oftentimes it seems that folks in the weather business, the weather industry, are so fixated on going one direction, following one model, doing what you've always done. And so when we're kind of, producing a forecast that everybody else is producing, sometimes for us, it's kind of a red flag. Like, hey, I don't really want to be in the same page as everybody else, because for so long that image of a forecaster has been, no, they can be wrong half the time and still have a job, or you know how it is. And so we built our business based on wanting to put out an accurate product that people, when they actually view our forecast and they listen to what we had to say, that they're actually like, okay, this guy, I need to listen to what these guys are saying, because normally they can sniff this stuff out. So we kind of wanted to build a reputation based on that. So we've been working on that pretty hard for about 6 years. In the last couple of years, we've grown in the energy sector and the agriculture sector, and traders and commodities and farmers and folks who are relying heavily on our forecast for operational decision making, things like that. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to bring a staff on board. We have a full staff of 5 meteorologists, 7 people total.
Wow. And
they all work full time. We're all always constantly just kind of poring over stuff and trying to get the best information we can, and in the simplest way possible. I really am passionate about making sure people not only get the forecast, but they understand it as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've really enjoyed watching your videos pretty regularly this past year and a half, really. And I've told you this, how much you've educated me. And I guess you elitist meteorologists call guys like me weather weenies, people that just have this big fascination with weather. We're not, professionally trained or collegiately trained, but just I love it a lot. And I can certainly attest to how much you take the time to educate people. And I tell people on the Propane Buzz, it's one of my, creeds, if you will. An educated client is a better client. The more information that you can understand, the better it's all going to be for everyone. And you can certainly do that. So yeah, that's really exciting stuff. And there's probably about 600 people that are getting this that have been following me for more than at least 5 to 6 months. In some instances, the whole time I've been introducing them to you prior to our official relationship, and probably also about 1,700 people right now watching this who maybe have never heard from you or from BAM before. So it's going to be a lot of fun for us all to get together and attack this summer and winter together. Now, it wouldn't be right to have you on this and not ask maybe the biggest weather weenie question of them all on June the 7th, 2018, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are there any beginnings of fingerprints or inklings as to what some of the climate driving setups might be for this coming fall and winter? Because in propane, home heating is big for the propane industry. Certainly the retailers that I'm talking to now and you're talking to, home heating is their biggest portion of their business. Anything on deck yet? I know it. Let me give the caveat. It's too dang early to tell. There's too many things that can happen. But sometimes there's really macro drivers that either show up or in place. And I'm curious if you're seeing any of those yet.
there's three things that spark three things. There's three things that have my attention right now. The number one thing is we're headed back into a grand solar minimum period, where the sunspots are low, the solar energy is low, and there's strong correlations of just colder, longer duration winters during those lower solar years. Last year was a prime example of that, and we're coming into that solar minimum this year, next year, probably the year after. You can kind of relate that to the 2008, 2009, 2010 winters that were really cold. We had a low solar period then. So that's working out well for us. The second thing is INSO, which is the Equatorial Pacific Waters, and what they're doing. And there's strong indications right now that some type of weak to moderate central-based or Modoki-type El Nino can develop.
For people that aren't familiar, it's one of my favorite words in weather. The Modoki or Modoki El Nino. Modoki is Japanese for the same but different. One of my favorite words ever.
Yeah, exactly. You can Google it. There's some good stuff on Google about that. But what it means is it's not a basin-wide event. It means that it's more of a central-based event that can really enhance the pattern in the United States in terms of a big eastern U.S. trough, stormy and cold. In fact, 13 and 14 would have been a decent example of some central-based activity. And the third thing is the QBO, which basically is the wind pattern over the tropical Pacific. The QBO is easterly, and right now, in fact, it's very easterly. Simply put, I'm just making this simple. That factored with a central-based El Nino can mean a big-time hitting winter. And so from an analog standpoint, this upcoming winter would be harsh and cold and snowy, especially in the east and the northeast. So from a forecast model standpoint, there really isn't much out that far just yet. But so, just looking at major atmospheric drivers, those three things would lend support of another cold U.S. winter.
So when Michael talked earlier about, outside the box analysis and thinking, it kind of hit on it right there. There's not really any model guidance this far out, and frankly, you wouldn't want to use it anyway. And honestly, the models have not been all that good a couple of weeks out. I know I've been watching you lament that in your ongoing summer forecasts here. But again, folks, these are big climatic drivers that have the ability to really impact things on a macro level. And that's why he's able to talk about some of these observations far out. I know you've been talking about the low solar for actually the last 7 or 8 months. I remember favoriting a few of your tweets where you talked about that you thought we were potentially entering a grand solar minimum, which I think would be fantastic. Bring on a Maunder minimum, elongated period. That would certainly span the rest of my life in propane. So those are good things. Not going to hold you to it, but I do like the fact that you're willing to talk about what you're seeing and not be scared to maybe make a mistake. To that end, one of the last things I want to ask you, you talked about the joke about how weather people only need to be right 50% of the time to keep a job. You, along with another commercial outfit, and I've gotten some feedback from people since I've made the announcement that we're going to be teaming up, that how impressed they've been by your accuracy and that of your organization. But everybody missed on February 2018, the February that we just came through, and your official forecast on January 31st. Another company who, like you, the last 3 years, I think has nailed every winter when the other people, when the masses were getting it wrong. You guys, you called torch 2 years ago, and a lot of people were calling for another cold winter. How, when I say, can you miss, please don't take it personally. I'm talking the meteorological community in general. How do you miss when you're on the doorstep of February? Because the forecast for February on Jan 31 was for a February that was similarly cold to what we just experienced the first half of Jan. How did we miss this year?
So the big thing this year goes back to the QBO I was talking about, the strong easterly QBO. What that does is it makes the polar vortex stronger, but it also agitates it more. And so what happens is we're blowing consistently at that lobe of the coldest air on the planet, and eventually it splits in half. When that polar vortex breaks down or splits, where the lobe of that coldest air goes is impossible to forecast.
For sure.
It's still such a young science. The stratosphere is so perplexing. It's so magnificent. It's just, the stratosphere is insane. And so the sudden stratospheric warming event, which we call SSW in the weather world, is what, split that vortex in half and really, set the stage for not only that, but getting into March, where we had late season blizzards in March.
Right.
The coldest April on record. I mean, the lingering effects from that polar vortex split were unprecedented. I mean, I just would have never.
Right.
So we at that part there, when you involve the stratosphere and you can break down that vortex, pretty much all typical forecast methods go out the window when you involve the polar vortex.
So you guys accurately predicted in late January that there would likely be a perturbation, a weakening of the vortex, which would cause it to split. It's just like, think of putting a basketball on your driveway and cracking an egg over top of that basketball. Which way is the yolk going to run? Well, you can't really know it, especially if you can get it exactly over the top. You have no way of predicting it. And if you think of the polar vortex, which is the westerly winds that contain the coldest air on the planet over the North Pole, if you think of that breaking down and wobbling and all of a sudden that's your egg to fall down, you don't know which direction it's going to go. So you knew it was coming. You called that it was coming. The egg yolk just went over Europe and not over North America. Is that about right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's.
You can use that. You can use that egg yolk example as your own. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We can know the atmosphere is going to prime itself for that phenomenon to occur. Then where it goes, it's kind of silly.
Right.
It's
right. A lot of ag folks here. This is the last thing. A lot of ag folks get this. Ag-related companies. I'm the son. My father was a general manager of an agricultural co-op for the majority of my life within the Growmark system. So I grew up with a little hay in my sock, and I can tell by the terminology you're using on Twitter, you're really picking up on things as well. Doesn't look like all that encouraging news as far as, in my opinion, yield is concerned this summer, because could be some drought and pretty hot, intense conditions coming up based on what you're talking about.
Some kind of an issue this summer. I think it's in the southern ag belt, southern and eastern ag belt. I think that I just think there's a problem somewhere. I don't know exactly where yet, but we have some key indications right now that there could be some pretty significant heat towards pollination. And that would come probably June 25th through July 15th. Maybe closer to July 30th in the further northern parts of the belt that were planted late, but there are indications of the same pattern drivers that brought the significant Memorial Day heat wave back in late May would return for late June and early July, and we have a lot of evidence mounting up right now to that. So I do think where the soils are the driest, look for exacerbated issues getting into July.
Yeah, that's a bummer, but. What's not a bummer is working together. I've been excited about this for so many months. I'm glad we get to kick it off. And those of you keep looking every single day at the Propane Buzz, you're going to see Michael's videos. And then later this month, we'll begin to talk about the subscription offerings we're going to have. And BAM's, whether their expertise is going to be available for subscribers only. But this month, you're going to get a chance to look under the hood. Michael, thanks for teaming up, and thanks for coming on with me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, John.
All right. We will be talking to you soon. Thanks for watching.